Ahoy! Welcome to our channel Bellson Boardgames. This time, at the request of the publisher Taberna Vagantis Publishing, the video is in English. I am Mrs. Bellson, and in this video I'm going to present you the game Ahoy Taverneer and share our opinion about it. Its campaign is launching soon on Kickstarter. So, let's get down to the business. First, some facts about the game, and then we'll dive into the rules. Ahoy Taverneer is print-to-play roll-and-write game for 1 to 4 players. What's more, it features 2 different solo modes. The designers of the game are Andrzej Kozakowski and Mirosław Talik. So now, when we know the basics, let's set sail for the table! Oh, one more thing. The game will be released in 2 different versions, safe and not safe for work. So each of you will be able to choose whether you want to focus purely on the gameplay or allow yourself to get a little distracted.
You are one of the lucky few who, by participating in the profession of a pirate, have lived to the ripe old age. Admittedly, you don't have much left of your adventures themselves, but your legend can still grow. You will be held by the lovely pirate girls you rescued by bouncing them from a naval prison ship. You thought this would be your last adventure, but these haughty girls persuaded you to go on another one. This time already in the role of admiral, sitting quietly in your favorite chair on the veranda of your own unique pirate tavern in Nassau. So your current goal is to become the most famous, retired and living pirate. For the game you will need 1 Nassau board, 1 Caribbean Sea board, 1 first player marker. Then each player prepares 1 property board, something to write with, preferably in a different color than the others, 3 pawns in the same color and different from the other players, 4 standard d6 dice, 5 if you play with the epic guest deck. Place the Caribbean Sea and Nassau boards in the center of the table. On the Caribbean Sea board, each player places their ship pawn on the space marked with the red anchor. Each player places a property board in front of them. Shuffle the guest ship decks and draw 8 cards face down. The remaining cards won't be used in this game. For the purpose of the game setup, everyone gets a starting property, 10 virtual pouches. If you want, you can count them on the dice. Now it's time to bid for the order of the tavern selection. The player with the longest beard starts the bidding by offering any number of pouches, then in the clockwise direction, each player can either raise that amount or fold. When all other players fold, the winning player pays their bid by removing that number of pouches from their pool. Now he can choose any tavern field. He marks it with his color or pattern and places his solicitor pawn on it. Each of these fields offers a different starting bonus and is a different distance from the port, as indicated by the number on the tavern field. It's also relevant in case of ties, but more on that later. The remaining players bid again to choose from the remaining taverns. When everyone has paid their bids and chosen their places on the map, if they have any virtual pouches left, they must divide the number of virtual pouches by 2. Then they spend all remaining virtual pouches on expanding their property. Any unspent virtual pouches are forfeited. Now the players shift so that they sit in order of the taverns from the closest to the port to the farthest, and it's time to start the game. The game Ahoy Taverneer consists of consecutive 8 rounds, which are counted down by a deck of guest ship cards. Each round consists of 3 phases: the planning phase, the action phase, the visitor phase. Planning phase. The first player draws a card from the deck of guest ship cards and places it face up in the prominent position. Then he rolls 3 basic dice, and the other players copy his results, so that everyone has the same set of dice. If any player has an extra dice, now he can roll it and add it to his pool. Next, each player can modify the results on the dice. To do this, discard one of the dice and add or subtract the result of the just discarded one to another dice. Action phase. Starting with the first player and then sequentially, clockwise, each player assigns one of his dice to the selected action and immediately considers it. On the Caribbean seaboard, the only action is sailing, but it involves several events. When you finish moving your ship on the Caribbean Sea, you may activate the field you landed on. You can only use fields that have not been used before, that is, fields not yet crossed off. Fields have the following abilities. Visiting a port. If you end your movement on an uncrossed port field, cross it off, then roll the dice of fate, add to the number of dots the number of cargo you have on your ship. If the result is within the range of 1 to 6, mark one room on your property board. If the result is 7 or more, mark on your property board one brandy or one room. It's your choice. Treasure hunt. If you end your move on an uncrossed treasure field, roll the fate dice. If the result on the dice is less than or equal to the number of crew you have, cross off this field on the Caribbean board. You gain gold equal to the number of crew you have. Mark it on the vault of your property board. Assault on the merchant. If you end your move on an uncrossed merchant field, roll the dice. If the result on the fate dice is less than or equal to the number of cannons you have, cross off this field. You gain 1 gold for each cargo hold you have. Again, mark it on your property board. Fighting the sea monster. If you end your move on an uncrossed field of the sea monster, roll the dice. If the result on the dice is less than or equal to the number of your cannons, cross off that field on the Caribbean Sea. You gain 1 point of fame. Mark it on your property board. Visiting the village. If you end your move on the village, cross it off and mark an empty spot for a waitress on your property board. If you don't have any waitress spot left on your board, you don't cross off the village on the Caribbean board. Besides events, you might have a clash with another player on the Caribbean Sea. If you finish your ship's movement on a field occupied by another player's ship, each player involved in the clash rolls the die and adds to the results the number of cannons he has. The player who won gets a point of fame, while the loser gets a point of dishonor, and his ship is placed on the field with an anchor. The winner can consider the event on the field on which he stands, if it's not crossed off. On the Nassau board. You move around the Nassau board with your solicitor pawn. To move your solicitor, you must assign one of your dice to the move action. The number of dots on it indicates the number of squares the solicitor can move by. You can only move through streets vertically or horizontally. You cannot move diagonally through intersections. When you finish moving your solicitor, you can choose one of still available fields in the quarter. As in this case, I can use the gold bar field and the bounty hunter, but I can't use the waitress, because that field is already crossed off. If you earned your move on the field with your opponent's solicitor, move him to the field of his own tavern. Description of the fields on the Nassau map. Theft of gold. Cross off the field with gold bar and add to your vault a number of gold bars equal to the dice value used for this move. Hanging up the poster. Mark the poster field by drawing your symbol or color there. Marked posters are useful when considering the guest ship card during a 4-players game. Bounty Hunter. Cross off the Bounty Hunter field and mark 1 star of fame on your property board. Boost purchases. Add the reputation of your tavern to the number of dots on your assigned movement dice. If the total is 1 to 6, you gain the room. Mark it on the appropriate box on your property board. If the total is 7 or more, you acquire brandy. If you don't have any more brandy slots or you don't want it, you can check the regular room box. Recruitment of waitress. Cross off waitress field and mark an empty space for the waitress on your property board. Note that you can only do this if you have an empty room for her on your board. Visit to the port. This is the only action on the Nassau board whose field is not crossed off. You can do this action repeatedly by visiting the port with your solicitor. If you have finished your move in the port quarter, mark either one cargo or one crew on your property board. Other actions available on the Nassau board that not require movement with your solicitor. Expansion of the property board. To use this action, place your dice on the expansion field. This field has no limit to the number of dice you or your opponents can place on it. Depending on the number of dots on the dice allocated to this action, you can expand one item or a maximum of 2 items on your property board. To pay for an expansion, you need to cross off the blue pouches in your vault. Note that only those pouches with all 4 gold boxes in a row are available. Each expansion costs 1 pouch. After paying the cost, mark the item's expansion box and instantly gain a bonus, usually a tavern reputation point or a fame point. You cannot use this action to expand the liquor store or to hire a waitress. Change of reputation. By placing your dice on this field, you can temporarily change your or someone else's tavern's reputation in the next visiting phase. However, to do so, your dice must lie on this field during the visitor phase. If this field is occupied by another player's dice, you may push it out by allocating your own dice with the same or greater number of dots. Visitor phase. The visitor phase consists of 4 stages. Temporary reputation change. If a dice is placed on the change of reputation field, its owner can now choose to increase or decrease his own or another player's reputation for the duration of the guest visit. Assigning guests to the taverns. The first player checks the requirements for each group of guests on the ship card in order from top to bottom and announces to which player each group will go, marking this with a pawn in that player's color. Ties are decided by the distance of each player's tavern from the port. The one of the tied players who has his tavern closest to the port decides whether he or another player wins the tie. So, for example, according to this card, the Capitan will go to the tavern with the highest reputation, the officer to the tavern with the most liquor, while the sailors to the tavern with the lowest reputation. On the other hand, locals with the reward poster icon go to the 4th player who doesn't meet any of the above conditions. Consideration of profits. In order from the first player, everyone considers the profits brought by a given group of guests and marking its result on their property board. In the basic guest ship deck, this is always gold. The Capitan always gives fixed profit plus profit for the number of rooms with a waitress. Officers give fixed profit plus profit for the number of bottles of alcohol. Sailors give fixed profit plus profit for the tavern's reputation. Residents always give 1 gold plus 1 gold for the number of players' posters in Nassau. Cleaning up after guests. Players collect their dice from all boards. The guest ship cards used is removed from the game. Pass the first player market to the person sitting on your left. Once the last guest ship card has been resolved, the game ends and scoring begins. First, each uncrossed pair of owned blue pouches in the vault provides 1 point. For each possessed marked white flags at the bottom of the property board, remove 1 fame point. The player who has the most fame points wins the game. In case of tie, the tavern's reputation decides the tie. The game will also have expansions, including the Epic Guest deck, which will include guests with special mechanics and others who offer rewards beyond just gold. An example is the Flying Dutchman, which goes to the player with the highest reputation and takes away half of his fame points, giving in return an extra dice for the rest of the game. The other players, on the other hand, receive fame points in the number of posters they have. Pro tip: if you don't want to use a lot of ink to constantly print out new boards, I recommend printing them out nicely in color and putting all the sheets in clear sheet protectors and using dry erase markers from another game or bought them in a store. Ahoy Taverneer offers not just one, but two different solo modes. The standard one and much shorter beat to quarters mode. Basic mode. The gameplay consists of series of games. The condition to continue the series is to achieve a minimum of 10 points and a higher score than in the previous game. Your campaign score is based on how many solo games you played in a row with a higher score than the previous one. This means that the fame achieved in a given game must be at least one higher than in the previous game. The number of games won in this way should be compared with the table in the instruction. The solo game has several differences from the multiplayer game. In addition to the fact that the action of clashing with another player's ship and chasing out the opponent's solicitors are unavailable, in solo mode you use a special deck where the type of visitors you get depends on the tavern reputation. After each game, you remove one random guest card from the entire pool. It means that starting from the 7th game, the number of rounds will decrease with each subsequent playthrough. If an action did not provide you with a mark on the property board, fame, gold, waitress, alcohol, cargo or crew, then you get a point of dishonor. You should mark a white flag. White flags carry over the subsequent games. When you have to mark another one and you have no more unmarked white flags, you lose the game. After each round, you have to cross off one selected box on the Nassau board and on the Caribbean Sea board. Beat to quarters mode. This is variant of solo game, fast and brutal. You start with nothing and you must succeed. Swim or sink, there is no turning back. This variant consists of a series of 2 games. In the first, you start the game with no tavern expansion. At the start of the second game, you receive a number of virtual pouches for expanding the property board, equal to 1/3 of the fame points you earned in the first game. The first game lasts standard 8 rounds. The second game lasts only 5 rounds. Your final score is the sum of the fame points from both games, which should be compared with the table of this mode. Here the rules are similar to the multiplayer game, except that we use the guest ship deck for solo mode, and the second game lasts only 5 rounds, and the action of chasing of the player's solicitor and clashing with the opponent's ship are not available.
And that's Ahoy Taverneer. I hope you also felt pirate vibes. The game is absolutely brimming with them, so time to share our thoughts about the gameplay. We've played this game in a variety of setups, and we can say that it works well in every configuration. With 2 players, the gameplay feels more relaxed, and it's ideal for those who prefer a chill session. But with 3 or 4, the tension ramps up, and you really need to watch what the others are up to. The game offers plenty of options, both on the Nassau board and the Caribbean board, allowing for multiple courses to victory. As for things that could be improved, I expected the dice results to have a stronger impact on the gameplay and to limit available actions more significantly rather than just modifying them slightly. Even so, it doesn't really take away from the fun. Another minor thing is the amount of colored ink that we need to print the game, but this can be easily solved by putting printed sheets in the sheet protectors. Regarding the solo modes, the standard one is definitely designed for optimization lovers who want to min-max every move. But we personally prefer the beat to quarters mode because it's relatively fast and you can try to reach the highest score in different ways. The designers also shared that they're planning to add the previously mentioned Epic Visitors deck, as well as a deck of Rich Merchants, both of which will boost replayability and introduce a whole range of new mechanics. On top of that, they're also working on alternate version of Caribbean board. That's quite a lot of content for a single print-to-play title. So, if game Ahoy Taverneer caught your interest, you will find the link to the campaign in description. Make sure to check it out. And in the comments, let us know what you think about this game concept. Do you like print-to-play? And which version would you choose? Safe or not safe for work? See ya on the high seas!